Welcome back, everybody, to our final afternoon of the Global Manufacturing and Industrialization Summit. Bringing things to a climax, we now have a very exciting discussion between two people who are going to play a really critical role in the development of the UAE over the next few decades. And I think a lot of lessons in this conversation, not just for the UAE and the GCC, but also for countries globally. Everyone's thinking about how do we incorporate trends like Industry 4.0, like the changing dynamics of supply chains, like the uncertainty and the geopolitical risk we see in the world today, trying to develop our human capital to be ready for the future. These are challenges that all countries are facing. And so in our discussion today, we're going to be hearing what the plans are here in the UAE and some discussion about how we think those trends are going to play out in this region. But of course, it's something that is going to affect us all globally. Let me just welcome the two speakers that we have for this session. I'm sure you are all familiar with them. I'm very pleased today to be able to welcome His Excellency Mohammad Al Gergawi to the stage, who's the UAE Minister of Cabinet Affairs and the Future, and also His Excellency Khaldoon Al Mubarak, who is the Chairman of the Executive Affairs Authority of Abu Dhabi, and also the Managing Director of Mubadala Corporation. Please join me in welcoming them. Gentlemen, thanks very much for giving us and the audience here at GMIS your time today and the benefit of your insights. I just want to begin by taking a look back into the past before we step forward into the future. So, the story and success of the last 40 or 50 years for the UAE is quite well known. So the transformation of the Emirates economically and also politically, and their influence in the world to become one of the world's major logistics and trading hubs and important business centers globally. From a beginning that was very, very different is an incredible story. Thinking about how that happened, what's your opinion, each of you, about the key success factor? What is the one thing that the UAE did particularly well that you think was important to that success? If we start with Excellency Al Gergawi.
Thank you, Simon. I think one of the most important elements that had happened is leadership. We live in a region that we've seen leaders that break countries and leaders that take country to places that even the population couldn't imagine. I think the most important factor of the success of UAE, we had leaders who created a nation, who believed in the ability of the people, but also they were realistic within their society and within the surrounding. And what had happened since 1971 to now, it's a miracle. If you look at the country, in early 70, barely it had road. Today you have highway in the sky. If you look at Emirates, Etihad, Al Arabiya, Fly Dubai, almost you have 450 planes, 500 planes, the largest international fleet globally. And you go back to the 60s, your runway was a dirt runway. So it is a human journey for all of us. A lot of us, we've seen what had happened, but if I look at one success factor, I'll say leadership. The late Sheikh Zayed, he believed that he had a mission. He looked at the people. He was very much open for new idea, but he worked himself in the field to make things happen. And he was a role model for all of us.
Okay. And Your Excellency Al Mubarak, so apart from leadership, which I think is a critical factor, is there something else you would pull out as being a success factor?
Yeah, I think echoing Boussaid's point, no question, I have to first start by agreeing 100% that the leadership aspect that we've been blessed with in the UAE is quite an incredible advantage. If you look at the story, it's really nothing short of a miracle. Who would have believed, if we go back to 1970 as a starting point for this conversation and look at where we are as the United Arab Emirates here in 2017. I mean, very hard to have possibly dreamed or imagined that starting point in 1970 to where we are today could have been achieved. But I think it's because of leadership, it's because of I think the clear strategic vision that was always there from day one. Now, many will say, true, that's all good, but you also had the natural resources that helped speed up this evolution and this development of the United Arab Emirates. But you know what? Resources without leadership doesn't really mean things can be achieved. You know, I will give you an example. If you go back again to that, let's say, a starting point of 1970 for the sake of this example I'm going to give, and you look at two countries. One, the UAE, and the other, let's say, in North Africa, and let's take Libya as an example. Similar starting point, similar population size, plus or minus, similar wealth in terms of natural resources, again, plus or minus, similar size to an extent. But then you look at Libya in this case, with the additional advantages of location in the Mediterranean, vis-a-vis the big markets in Europe, wealth in terms of not just natural resources, archaeological and historic resources. So if you're going to decide on an industry like tourism, the advantages you have in a country like Libya with the wealth it has in terms of the history and the touristic archaeological sites and historic sites that have incredible benefits. And then, you know, hundreds and hundreds of miles of Mediterranean seafront. So if you're going to start at that point and you are going to think which one of these two horses in 2017 will go further, I think most likely you would have probably, I think given the starting point, bet on, in this case, Libya. But the difference is exactly to my colleague Boussaid's point, leadership. Leadership and the ability to then direct resources, create new industries, and from day one, have a clear diversification strategy that didn't just focus on the utilization of natural resources, but rather building a functional economy that is diverse and that is sustainable.
When you look forward to the next 50 years, what do you think the UAE looks like in 2067? What kind of country do we have?
Last week we had actually the cabinet meeting. And in the cabinet meeting, we decided that by 2071, the centennial of UAE would like to be the destination. And the strategy was based on Hassan Sheikh Mohammed Zai's speech that he addressed youth almost 3 weeks ago, a month ago. For us in UAE, the path is very clear. Within this path, we have a plan. 2021,
So that's not on.
our national agenda, and After that, we have a 50 years plan till 2071, based on the vision of His Sheikh Hamad Al. But within this milestone, we have a couple of stuff. There's, I'll say, a short term, which is almost 10 years. What we'd like to focus on. We're focusing on sustainable energy. We're focusing on 3D printing. We're focusing on software. Airspace. And if we bear in mind, we live in a time that the time frame is changing, it will change. And always I believe, because of technology, human resources is changing also. So, before you had only one mindset, or one human power, let me put it this way. We go back 50, 60, 70 years ago. And whatever is happening in technology, you have collective human power, mind power. What I mean here, we live in a very interesting time. The evolution of technology will change the way we live. This is always I say. This is the first second of the first minute, of the first hour, of the first day. When it comes to technology, we haven't seen anything yet. So for us, we are not a big nation with a huge population, but we know how to leverage technology for our own industry and to maximize the brain power of UAE. So the short term, I told you what we are focusing on. Most probably in the next 50 years, we are looking at space, for example. Just I'll give you an example. For us, space is important, and I think we'll see a lot of companies. Even so, it's driven right now mainly by government, but we'll see the private sector is getting on board in space. And in September, we have the first retreat, government retreat, that's going to be federal and local retreat, where we're getting everybody together, and they're going to give us a more detailed plan on 2071 strategy where we'll be. But the future will be based also on human and machine, just moving away from. If you look at technology and where it's going, we know that robot will play a major role in our life. We know that artificial intelligence will play a major role in UAE economy, robot, artificial intelligence. So we'll maximize that for the benefit of our industry and so many different fields. But that will be based on also education. Our education has to change. And we started. Just an example, coding is going to be across every single grade right now in UAE. So everybody, every single student who finished high school will be a coder, because job of the future will be based on code actually. So that will reinvent even education. You need university, a certain field. If you're a coder, you need to go to 4 years college, or you can get out of high school and you are the best coder. So we are looking at a holistic view, bearing in mind the evolution of technology, which will change so rapidly that government have to be part of it. You don't want to receive it, you want to create it.
You mentioned human capital. I'm wondering, to take out a very specific dimension of that, what do you think the UAE's population will be in 50 years' time? Do you see it being much bigger or similar size, or fewer people and more robots?
I think definitely you'll see more utilization of robot and artificial intelligence. I mean, this is a global trend. We know within the next 3 years, 7 million jobs will be replaced by robot and artificial intelligence. So we are no different. So definitely the use of artificial intelligence will be much higher. The use of robot will be much higher. Yeah, if you go to Strata, for example, I was with Badr and he was showing me where they are going. They're using robot. So UAE, it will be a place for talent. That's the way. It doesn't matter. Today, population doesn't matter. It is how good is your population. That's what matters. And we are concentrating on the quality, as Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed been stating in his speech. The quality of your population, the quality of your student, the quality of your workforce, that's what matters.
Okay. And Your Excellency, Al Mubarak, I mean, thinking about your perspective from Mubadala, where the corporation has a history of taking quite a long-term vision, so I guess you have some thoughts about the future 40, 50 years away that you need to prepare for.
Okay, I think I'll first answer the question you first asked, which is where do I see us in 50 years?
Yeah.
It's impossible to see where we're going to be in 50 years because it's impossible to predict where industries are going to be in the next 50 years today. But what I do know with a high level of confidence is that as the UAE, we're going to be there. We're going to be there in terms of being competitive and being at the forefront. I feel that confidence because, you just heard Boussaid talking about how our government is thinking today. This is not a government that's thinking about the past with future. And that's a very important point. Many governments, in the way they're running, they are focusing at the past and today. We're lucky that we have a government that's really focusing at the future. And that gives a lot of confidence. We've been, for the last 40 plus years, as the UAE, investing in many industries. And I think more correct than wrong, we made the right choices. Many industries that we invested in the country, in terms of both government and private sectors, I think were the right choices were the right choices for the time. Be it the industries we invested in the 1970s, in the 1980s, the 90s, the 2000s. And you look at it today, that's why many of our companies are thriving. Be it in the airline business, be it in the aluminum smelting business, be it in the petrochemical business, be it in the free zone business. We have thrived because we've made the right choices or more correct choices than not over the last 40 years. So that in itself is a good indicator for you as we look at the future. The future, it's about us focusing on education, making sure we are at the forefront in terms of the output that's coming out from our schools, universities, and higher education. And making sure that we are competitive in terms of infrastructure. That comes in both physical infrastructure, but then legal and regulatory and economic incentive infrastructure to make sure we consistently be at the forefront of being a country that is growing and going to be competitive economically. With that mindset, that gives us already, I think, an advantage. When we talk about the future, when we talk about the 3D printing and how that's going to revolutionize manufacturing, when we talk about robotics, automation, to be honest, all of these actually fall into the advantages that we can mobilize and move very quickly. Our size, though small, can be a disadvantage in terms of volume, in terms of population, etc. But it's actually also a very big advantage because we can move. We've shown that we can move and we can be a very important hub, not just from a regional perspective, but from a global perspective. The key for us is now we have to think at the next 10 years, 20 years, invest wisely. When it comes to, now I'm putting my investment hat on, we have to be wise and smart in terms of the investments we make and really pick and choose the areas that we think are going to be the industries and the investment sectors of the future. I agree with Boussaid. I think particularly the sectors he mentioned, artificial intelligence, robotics, automations, industries that will be focused on that and advantage with that. We have a clean slate. We can actually work very quickly in these sectors, and we can provide the right advantages to be a center of excellence, not just in the region, but I think globally. We don't think anymore, I think, locally or regionally. We have to continuously look at ourselves from a global perspective, and I think we have that.
I mean, the UAE is doing a lot right. The country has thought hard about its policies, but there's always new challenges. And is there anything you think that the UAE is not doing today that it will need to be doing in 5 years?
You know, the good thing of sitting next to minister is to then you just flip the question first to him. So in respect and due respect, I'll have Mohammad answer that first.
So what was your question? I think in life is based on challenges. A lot of things we should do, but do we have the resources for it? Is it the right time to do it or no? We are quite, you have to understand, life is very complex. Our job is to simplify it somehow. We live within a region that changes take place almost on a daily basis. We live in a world that political change and economic change move quite fast. We have to know our strength, and we have to identify area that we are really good at. There is a reality check. As a journalist, you know exactly what's your field, what you're good at. As a nation, we understand that. But also the whole process is evolving on a daily basis. We decided that we'd like to be a global player. Yes. It's a decision. Do you want to be a regional player or a global player? We decided that we'll integrate our economy and our society in the global arena. And there's a plus and minus for that. I think the most important thing that for a nation is to have goal and to have strategy. I'm diverting a bit from your question here. But there is a bigger picture in the whole thing. And the audience have to know why we do whatever we are doing. You don't wake up in the morning and you decide that you want to do that. We are in the mode of nation building. This is a nation building. We are a young nation compared to other. But also we are very ambitious. And through the experience that started in 71 and before that, I think there's tremendous confidence in the ability of nation building and building human resources, infrastructure, industry, and soft power also as a nation. So from small place, a desert place, had no honest road, no hospital, no infrastructure, UAE became a global player. So whatever we do in UAE, we are doing it with a notion that our job is to create a platform for the region to look up the young people like Khaldoon, like the audience here said, why they can do whatever they can do in UAE. They are like us. So we live in a region that there is tremendous issue. Social, political, religion, economic issue. And I think our purpose is beyond just economy. And our purpose beyond politics. Our purpose is we are a nation that have a mission in life. The mission is how do you enhance human life across our region. This is what we do. So I diverted from your question because I think it's important to understand why we do whatever we do. Why we wake up in the morning and we run, everybody run in this country. Because it's been embedded within everybody in UAE that we have a mission in life. And our mission is to improve the region, actually. To understand what we are doing in a political arena, a social arena, and economic arena. We are doing it with a purpose here. Challenges will be there. Sector that we need to tackle always will be there. Evolution in our economy will be there. But we decided that we'll embrace changes. We are not afraid from the future. Actually, we move on and we have the future because we believe that the future will be brighter. We have that hope and we are building that hope. And really we believe that UAE can contribute to the human ability in so many different sectors. Industry part of it, but also where the industry will go, that's another sector, space, and other sector. So we are a nation that has a calling in life. And our calling is very simple. It's how do you improve human life regionally and globally.
Our clock is unfortunately ticking down, but I want to,
for passing
before we get to the end, I do want to spend some time on some of the coming challenges that the UAE will be facing. I mean, when I look at the UAE from an outside perspective, I see, I think, three kind of key challenges for the country. So one is the long-term decline of oil, so in terms of reserves, but also in terms of price and how much it's used in the national economy, in the global economy, the implications that has for finances in particular. I think about the role that the UAE has built as a hub for the region, and of course that's really been assisted by the fact that the two biggest countries in the area, so Iran and Saudi Arabia, have not been very open. The UAE has been, so that's been a real advantage. On the assumption that those countries do slowly open up over the next decade or so, does that challenge the UAE's place? And there's the third challenge I would think about is in relation to climate change and livability, about whether it's actually going to be sustainable and pleasant from a lifestyle perspective to live in the Middle East if temperatures are 3 or 4 degrees higher in 2050 or 2060 than they are now. I mean, they're my thoughts on some of the challenges. I wonder if you could either share your responses to those or whether there are other challenges that you're focusing on.
I think the 3 points you mentioned are all relevant. Let's start with the first one. We've been living this challenge, I would say, for the last 30 years. It's not new to us. We have programmed ourselves. And I think the clear intention that our government and our country has really decided and the path it has took for the last 30 years has been a diversification track. The results you see today. Today, I think among the major oil producers, not just in the region but in the world, the UAE has gone a long way and comes really at the forefront in terms of a successful diversification strategy, and where oil is no longer represented in the same way it was represented, I would say, 30 to 40 years ago. So we've been working on this for a long time, and we've been preparing ourselves for the day, whenever that day comes, where either we run out of that resource, natural resource, or its economic benefits
are so severely affected that they no longer can contribute in the way they have been contributing. That challenge doesn't worry me. I think we are well on that track. We are well developed on that track. I don't agree, first of all, with the point that oil is declining and that oil in the short, medium term, and even in the immediate long term, is a commodity that will lose its intrinsic value. I don't agree with that. I think, so let me just be clear on that. But I do believe that we are well positioned to handle the cyclicality of this commodity in a very efficient way. And we will continue to develop this economy, invest in the economy, and make our economy able to efficiently handle the cyclicality that comes with this resource that is, in reality, an important resource of the country. So that's the first challenge you mentioned. The second challenge, remind me before the climate one, was the...
will the opening of Saudi and Iran
Yes.
have an impact?
And then again, we live in a competitive environment. We have constantly lived in that competitive environment. And we have constantly, I would say, thrived in that competitive environment. That competitive environment changes all the time. Who are you competing with today is different than who you will be competing with in 5 years, and it's different possibly than who you have been competing with for the last 20 years. What is going to distinguish you is your ability to stay competitive and stay ahead of the game. And this is, again, another area where I would say we in the UAE have a high confidence in that we will be ahead of the game. Because we don't walk, we run, we sprint, and we will continue to sprint. This, I have no doubt in. This message, you're not going to just hear it from me. It's not my message, it's a consistent message. You will hear it from the leadership, you will hear it from the top executives, you will hear it from the academics, you will hear it from the doctors, you will hear it from anyone you speak to. I think in this room, there's an appreciation that we in the UAE are going forward, are progressing, are running, and are going to keep sprinting. Because that has been and will always be the advantage we have as the UAE, and we know that. And therefore, we have to continue doing that in a very efficient, sustainable, and intelligent way.
Are there any changes that you think will need to happen specifically in relation to the opening up of Iran and Saudi?
You know, we can't predict what changes are going to happen, but what I can assure you is we will react and we will move, and we will always, you know, both as an economy, as businesses, as investors, we will react, we will pivot, and we will always be competitive. That I'm confident in.
Okay. Minister, would you have to come in?
Khaldoon have said everything. I think if you look at our economy, the non-oil economy is 70% of our GDP is non-oil, and this is the highest within the region. So our economy is quite diversified. If you look at just the tourism sector and the growth in the tourism sector, we have almost over 20 million tourists for a country of almost 9 million. That's almost double our population, and the growth will be tremendous in the next couple of years. So we have a plan. The plan has been working quite well. We monitor it, and today 70% of our GDP is non-oil. Regarding the second point that you mentioned, the opening of the regional market, I think is going to be good for us. If your neighbor is doing well, you'll do better. What worries me actually is not opening up of our region. What worries me is the closing of some big economy globally, protectionism. That's what worries me. So there is a bigger scale, there is a bigger change in the global arena than just the region. Definitely, the regional economy will open up, and we've been waiting for it, and we want it to happen because we are ready. Our economy is open. If you look at the open sky policy, for example, why our airlines is among the best airlines in the world? Because as a nation, we decided that we'll have an open sky policy. We are not, there is no protectionism. One. Al-Ittihad, Emirates, Al Arabiya, Fly Dubai, they have to compete with the best airlines in the world. To be fit, you need to train with the fittest. So we believe that open economy, regionally, globally, is good for us because we are very much globalized nation. Your third point was about the environment. What will happen if the environment changed by 2 degrees, basically, the heat? The globe is facing tremendous challenge. And some major industrial countries are contributing to the climate change, actually, globally. Where we are, whatever we are doing here in UAE, we are fighting that. If you look at our plan for sustainable energy, it's been tremendous. Khaldoon is responsible for one. If we look at our solar plan, a week ago we launched the largest solar plant globally, actually. So we are working quite heavily when it comes to alternative energy, when it comes to environment, when it comes to technology that will insulate building, malls, our life. But we need to bear in mind also there is evolution in technology, even with heat. Today you can walk outdoor and can be 5% cooler than usual through certain technology. So we're looking at, and life always has challenges. You know, nation been through challenges. We live in a desert. We live in a place that have a harsh climate. If you look at even our policy when it comes to space, we are taking these challenges that will be Mars, and we said, how do you fix it here in Earth? So whatever we do, it has purpose, actually. So challenges will be there. Our job as a human being and throughout human history is looking at challenge and facing these challenges, and that was part of human evolution, actually, when we look at it. That's why we are here today, because we've been facing challenges, but we've been fixing all the challenges that we face as a nation. Nobody thought UAE would exist, even in 1971 when it was formed by Sheikh Zayed. A lot of countries said that's going to fail, it won't happen. 46 years later, we are here, we are very strong, and we are a model for this region.
You know, if you had 20 years ago thought, will we by 2017 have 20 million tourists in the UAE while we have 40 to 45 degree temperatures in the summer? Again, real big challenge. Well, guess what? We did it. We have 20 million plus. We will continue to grow, and we have 45 almost degree temperatures in the summer. So, you know, the climate challenge is a challenge, but I have, again, the same confidence that we will always be able to meet that challenge and find ways to tackle it. You know, when we talked about solar, and I want to mention this one because it's a good example. We started investing in solar technology, and we have a company, as an example, Masdar. And at that point, a lot of people challenged the concept of why is an oil-producing nation investing in renewable energy, a source of energy that could be very competitive to its bread and butter, oil and gas. Because again, we saw the direction. Renewable energy will become a very competitive source of energy. And we wanted to be part of that revolution from day one. When we started investing in solar energy and the technology, solar was at 60 cents a kilowatt. It was highly uncompetitive, highly subsidized in its ability to be industrialized or to be part of power grids around the world. But we invested. We kept investing and we kept going with that technology. And over the last 6 years, we've gone from 60 cents a kilowatt, being a player within this industry, to being at the forefront of this industry, where we are now building a solar plant in Dubai at the lowest cost per kilowatt in the world of 2 cents a kilowatt. We've gone from 60 cents to 2 cents, where it's not only competitive and unsubsidized, it's actually a real high-quality form of energy that we are at the forefront in, and we are competitive globally. Not, again, a local or regional player, but a global player. And that's why I go back to the whole discussion we're having here. Why both Mohammed and myself have such a high confidence about the future and have such a positive aspiration at the ability of the UAE to consistently be at the forefront and competitive.
It is a very optimistic picture being painted. I think one thread that I pull out from what you've been discussing is agility as being a key factor. So challenges in the past, I guess more challenges in the future, some of which we can predict now, but many of which we won't know about. So certainly we'll all be watching closely to see how the UAE adapts to these challenges in the next few decades. Thanks very much for giving us your time, in fact a little bit extra. So please